Welcome to the Ben Mulroney Show on this Thursday, August 7th. Thank you so much for trusting us with your time. You got lots of options. The podcast world is the most competitive space in media. I mean, I looked at a number, God, it must have been 5 years ago. 5 years ago, there were 1 million active podcasts that you could choose from, and you choose to spend your time with us. And I promise you, it has not and will never be lost on me. It will also never be lost on me how significant the wildfires are in Saskatchewan. So many of them are raging out of control. One of the most frustrating things about them is that almost half of them were started by human beings, which is dumbfounding, but it's the reality. And you will remember that a few weeks ago, some American legislators clutched their pearls and asked politely if we could do something about the smoke that was coming from the north into the United States, because it was ruining barbecue season for those precious people in Minnesota who they don't have a long summer and they can't enjoy themselves. And so it was, please, can you do something about your wildfires? Yeah. And so that was ludicrous and idiotic. I was like, okay, if you can do something about, I don't know, the scourge of guns that are coming across our border and killing our citizens and making life unlivable here, yeah, maybe we'll do something about these acts of God. Now, I take the point that some of them are man-made, but wildfires are wildfires. You can't light a fire if the forest has seen rain in a few months, right? Anyway, it is what it is, but it continues because Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew keeps hitting it out of the park. Accused a group of Republicans of throwing a timber tantrum and playing political games after they called Canada out over the wildfires, sending smoke billowing across the international border. Quote, these are attention seekers who can't come up with a good idea on healthcare or on making life more affordable. So they're playing games with something that is very serious. And so, yes, there's a new volley here. In a Wednesday news release, Wisconsin State Rep. Calvin Callahan joined other Republican state lawmakers from Iowa, Minnesota, and North Dakota in filing a formal complaint against Canada to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency Administrator Lee Zeldin and the International Joint Commission, a binational organization that resolves disputes on shared water and air quality. The Republican lawmakers called for an investigation of Canada's wildfire management practices and for potential remedies under international law. I agree with Wab Kinew. These guys are trying to say, look over there because we don't want you looking over here. Pay attention to the big bad Canadians because there's potentially something over here that we're doing that we don't want you to see. And this is not just reserved to Minnesota. The wildfires are a global issue. You know, in a world of climate change, which is real, what used to be a small problem is now a regular occurrence, and it is now at a point where we have ministries devoted to wildfire management and crisis prevention. So Nova Scotia is dealing with this as well. And Premier Tim Houston took the extraordinary step of closing access to forests. And here he is at a press conference, and you can see on his face, he is tired. He is at the end of his rope, and he knows that he's got to give people some news that they don't want to hear, and he doesn't want to have to give. But he's not paid to be the boss to only tell people what they want to hear.
Effective 4 p.m. today, we're telling Nova Scotians, stay out of the woods. We are restricting travel and activities that really aren't necessary for most of us. Hiking, camping, fishing, and the use of vehicles in the woods are not permitted. Trail systems through woods are off limits. Camping is allowed, but only in official campgrounds. The fine for violating any of these bans is the same as the fine for the ban on burning, $25,000. And if you're a smoker, for God's sakes, be mindful of where you're butting your butt out. If you don't, and you cause a fire, we will hold you accountable.
Yeah, he's trying to get ahead of these people. He's trying to get ahead of the idiot factor, because there are a lot in a big enough data set. You will have idiots who think the rules don't apply to them, or that whatever they do in the woods will not lead to the devastation that we see. But we've seen it happen hundreds of times. I believe in Manitoba and Saskatchewan, there are hundreds of fires, or at least, no, I'm sorry. There were over 200 actives, and over 100 were caused by human beings and their decisions. And so he's trying to get ahead of it. And the fine for violating the ban, $25,000. He goes on and he says, look, if you're trying to get from point A to point B, and in order to do so, you have to cross a short path that goes through the forest, that's fine. But we're not going to come after you for that. But if your goal when heading into the woods, if your intention is to spend time in the woods, that's not allowed. It's not as cut and dried as you would think. Here is a little bit of a guy named Jeff Evely, who says he's trying to figure out what means in the woods and what's not in the woods.
I'm in Petersfield Provincial Park in the most tyrannical province of Canada, which is Nova Scotia, with my fuzzy friend Axel, where we walk pretty much every single morning. And here you can see that this area is taped off because that trail is the woods, but this area is not taped off because that's not the woods.
And I'm not airing the whole thing, but over the next 2 minutes or so, he gives examples of what is the woods and is cordoned off, and what is not the woods, which looks exactly the same. And it's quite funny. And I don't know, maybe he found the one place where the rule doesn't make a lot of sense, but I suspect it's just not something that had been fully and properly tested and implemented efficiently and optimally. But look, this is the reality of life in the world now. I mean, look, do you remember right before the pandemic? Do you remember that picture that was all over the internet of Australia on fire? Do you remember that picture? It was a shot. It was a picture from space.
Yes.
Now I've heard that was not like it was. They sweetened the picture for effect.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
I don't know that it was that prevalent or prominent, but that was 5 years ago in Australia. And it's not specific to Australia, and it's not specific to California. You'll remember the wildfires in California, and this happens everywhere now. This is just our life now. This is the reality of the world we live in. And there are things that we can do to stop that. And if scaring the bejesus out of people with a $25,000 fine will at least get us to the other side of wildfire season, it's worth being the bad guy for temporarily. And you could hear it in Tim Houston's voice. He even said it. He's like, summer is one of the best times to be in Nova Scotia. Of course, I don't want to do this, but I have to do this. He said, and go to the beach. He said, go to the beach. And if you have to cross a little wooded area to get there, do so. Just don't start a fire. And it's important to say that because people will go to the beach and they will think that I'm on the beach, I can have a fire, not remembering that a gust of wind can take an ember and have it travel God knows how far, probably farther than any of us think, and that can land in a dry patch and we can be right back to where we don't want to be. You got to lay it out for people because, like I said, with a big enough data set, you are going to collect a lot of idiots. And so in a case like this, you have to legislate to the lowest common denominator. You have to have an idiot clause in all of these plans because idiots are good at one thing, finding a way to mess things up for everybody else. And there you go. That's all I got to say about that. Thanks so much for watching the show. Now, if you enjoyed what you saw, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another episode of The Ben Mulroney Show.